If you miss it, you don't really have an excuse, right? You always have, you know where to get it. Okay. Here's the definition. So we're going to talk about area, right? The amount of space inside a two-dimensional object. And we are going to stick with two dimension. Okay, so flat. Okay. Measured in squared units. Example, right? Square feet, square meters, square yards, squared inches, and so forth. They always have a little square on top of the unit that we're working with. Okay. Right, so we talked about area. Doesn't do a good job highlighting. Just gonna stick with this one. Right, area, you should know that it's squared units. Right? Space inside, how much does it take up? Right? Practical applications. If you need to determine how much you need to cover and sometimes wrap something comma, we are talking area. Okay. Some examples would be carpet. Like if they ask you how much carpet would you need to purchase, right? Let me just go up a bit. Carpet needed. Paint to cover wall. Flooring. Could be tiling, tiles, right? How many tiles will you need? And the list goes on, but these are the most common ones. You could also say glass for fish tank. Right? Like if you want to make a fish tank, the glass you buy will be in as square footage, right? And so I'll just leave it at that. You get the picture. Okay. Perimeter. The distance around a 2D object. Okay. Think of our perimeter in the city, right? It goes around the city. And then that should help you remember. This is measured in linear units. Example, it'd be just feet, yards, inches, etc. So there isn't a little square on top of it. It's just one dimensional. Applications. Where would you need this, right? Because we're gonna do real life scenarios, right? If you need to determine, these are just some examples. You need to determine how much trim is needed for a project. What is trim? We can also, right, trim is the same thing as moldings. Is the same thing as sometimes baseboards. And it's basically what goes along the room, and it basically hides where the wall meets the floor because it's pretty ugly. Like the floor doesn't make it all the way to the wall. So if you look in my room right here, you have that gray stripe there, and so that is going to be what you need to do there. What else can we use this for? How long the string of lights has to be around the house or fence, right? If you want to know how much, what length of string do you need to decorate your house or whatever with lights. Okay. All right. Let's continue. Um, so that's that for area and perimeter. Okay, now we're gonna have we're gonna go over basic shapes. Basic shapes. These are gonna come back in grade 11 and in grade 12, so I stick with these. Okay, rectangles. I think you all know what a rectangle looks like, hopefully. Has 90-degree angles in every corner. It's not necessarily that the longer side is length, what we call it has a length and a width, And obviously there'll be two sides that measure the same, we call them L, and two sides that measure the same this way that are across each other, those are both referred to as the width. Right? So to find the area of a rectangle, you would just take length and multiply it by the width. Simple as that. If you wanted the perimeter of this, so the perimeter, you're starting at this corner and you're moving around, right? So you'd add all the side lengths up, and that would give you the perimeter. So it's in a sense 2 times length plus 2 times width. And from here, we can actually come up with more formulas, sub-formulas if you want to talk about them that way. Remember, your gross pay is equal to hours times wage. Oh no, Mr. Dirksen, don't talk about that. I don't want to remember that stuff. Well, it's still there, right? It works the same way. You can do the pyramid thing if you'd like. That is loud. Never noticed it that loud. Right? Whenever you see a formula like that, you're always able to do what I'm doing here. Area is equal to length times width. Always. If you see that, you know you can do that. So, to find the length, if you wanted to find the length and you were given area and the width, right? You can just go area divided by the width, and then you'll find it. If you wanted to find the width, right, you cover up width, so it's area divided by length. So what we've done is we've manipulated this. Manipulated means move things around. You change things so that it looks differently. It allows you to find different things. Okay, so from this you've determined that and that. So perhaps I told you that boxed in is always important, right? So this always applies to a rectangle. And then we're going to do triangles. Triangles. We're going to start with our basic right triangle. And obviously the side along the bottom is referred to as base, and the height of the triangle is referred to as h. Right? So that's one configuration of your triangle. I'm going to call this A right now just because I want to have a name for the third side. And then you could have a triangle that looks more like this. Right? In this case, this is still your base. This is still your height, right? And you have A and C. We can call this C, so ABC. But notice that the height is always, what's so interesting about the height is that it always makes a 90 with the ground. That's something you need to remember. The height is perpendicular, makes a 90 with the ground. Okay? So here, the height happens to be part of the triangle. Here, on the second one, the height is not part of the triangle. It is a dashed line across, but it's still indicating how tall this triangle is. Okay, and that one last version of the triangle you might see. Make it look like this. It's kind of slanted over. And in this case, your height, we're gonna dash out, okay? because the height still makes a 90 with the ground, we're still going to call this our base, and this is going to be A and C. And notice again that the height makes a 90 with the ground. So part of the triangle, inside the triangle, outside the triangle, right? The height can kind of be everywhere as long as it makes a 90 with the ground. So I'll give you the area. Area of a triangle is always base times height divided by 2. Always. And I will tell you this here in a little star. Base and height always meet at 90 degrees. So they always make a T, right? So let's say this triangle, I trick you and I put it sideways. You're like, wait, I don't have a base right now. It's like, just remember, I could flip this triangle on you. Too bad I can't. Just make sure that the two numbers you're multiplying make a 90. Okay? What about perimeter, Mr. Dirksen? Well, there's 3 different scenarios, right? So you just basically add the outside. So perimeter here is A plus B plus H. Perimeter here would be A plus B plus C. Perimeter here would also be A plus B plus C. So these two do not have the height as part of their perimeter. That's the one thing I need you to understand. Just remember this. Perimeter is the sum of all sides around that shape. So if you're just joining us, we are just copying this down on loose leaf, okay? And that's what we're going to be doing for the next little while. And sometimes I'll refer you to the booklet to work on some questions and then back. I will tell you this. I was handing out a yellow formula sheet as you were coming through. You should have a yellow formula sheet at this point. But let's say you don't. At the back of this booklet of chapter 3, there's that same formula sheet. It's on page 142 at the back. So if you ever misplace yours, it is part of this booklet. Okay, so you don't have an excuse that you don't have a formula sheet. Right? Just give me a heads up. And if you haven't taken that yellow formula sheet yet, it is later on. Don't do it right now. Okay, it's on this stack right here. This yellow one is, I think, yeah, the yellow handout is the formula sheet. And there was also the review for the test. All that is there. So if you never got a paper copy, just go through every slot and take one copy for yourself if you don't recognize it. Okay. So every once in a while, I'll just talk to give you time and copy this if you're falling behind, right? Okay. The next shape that we're going to be talking about is the circle. Circle, you only need one thing to figure out the area and the perimeter, and that's the radius. So the radius is always measured from the center to the side. And that I'm fairly confident you know that already. Then you have what goes right through. I'm going to do it this way. That's called the diameter. And so the diameter is always equal to 2 times the radius. And the radius is equal to diameter divided by 2. This is probably the most important one of the two. You need your diameter split in half to get the radius. So the area of a triangle, of a circle, is pi times radius squared. And I will tell you something. Okay, the pi button, your calculator, if you have a decent calculator, should have a pi button. Mine is a bit hidden. Mine is right down here in yellow, so there is no particular button. Some of you might have a pi button, good for you. I need to press shift and then pi, or that button for pi to show up. I want you to use the pi button, okay? But if you don't, I need you to do this on your study sheet, 3.14159. If you use that many decimals, you will get the same answers as we are getting. But I know some teachers probably always told you 3.14, right? I don't want you to do that. I want you to be as exact as possible. So 3.14159. And just go watch the clip from Night at the Museum of that little Einstein bobblehead or whatever, wobblehead, and you won't forget, right? He just keeps on saying that. He just basically gives you the pi digits. So 3.14159, that's what we're using. Okay. And I made my disclaimer there. And the perimeter is called the circumference. Oops. So sorry, I'm going to backtrack. Perimeter, it's basically the circumference, right? The circle, the distance around, which is 2 pi radius. So I'll just make it shorter here. C is equal to 2 pi r. So for circles, there are 3 important things you need to remember. Parallelograms. Parallel, right? That's where the word that should stick out. A parallelogram is simply 2 sides. It's a slanted rectangle, but the 2 sides still have the same length. Okay, and we're going to call this base still. This side is A, but you have to look at the height here. So again, the height makes a 90 with the ground, right? Just remember this, if you measure your height, you're going to be at a 90 with the ground. You're not going to lean, right? You're always going to stand straight if somebody wants to measure how tall you are, right? So same thing here. And so the area of this parallelogram would be base times height. That's it. And the perimeter would be 2 times A plus 2 times B. No height in there. And I'm thinking of trapezoids, but I think I'm just gonna leave that. Or I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna do trapezoids because they don't happen very often. What I forgot to do, I wanted to do it on a separate section, but I'm just gonna do it here. If you were given the area, like notice what, to find the area, all you need is the radius. There's just one thing you need to know. Like for a rectangle, you need to know length and width because pi is already given to you. So if you ever wanted to find the radius is gonna be area divided by pi, and you take the square root of that whole thing. If you wanted to know the radius and you were only given the circumference, radius is going to be circumference divided by 2 times pi. So radius given area, radius given circumference. We'll do a couple so you remember. Here base is going to be area divided by height. And height is going to be area divided by base. I think I forgot to do that with triangle. And we are out of room there for the triangle. I'll do it anyway. These here are what I call working backwards. Okay. It's not just a one-liner, it's working backwards. Okay, so you need to know how to do that. I think we're going to leave it at that. Okay, so examples. Find the area and perimeter of the following. I'm going to call it A. going to leave 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, and then I'm going to do D here. Okay, based on the formulas I just gave you, I want you to try these 4 here and see what you get. I think I'm going to add an E here. There. Try those. And see what you get. We're going to go over them, but I need you to try it now on your own, okay? Go ahead. Benedict, did you see this? All right. Okay, let's see what we've got. Area. Rectangle, so it's length times width. That's 4.375. So that rounds to 4.38, and we need to make sure we have a squared inches. Okay. Perimeter 2 times 2.5 plus 2 times 1.75. If you have a decent calculator, you can do this in one shot. So this would be 5 plus 3.5, which is 8.5 inches. Don't worry if one number is bigger than the other because we're talking different things. Okay, this would be the distance around this. This would be how many 1 inch by 1 inch squares can you fit in here, right? That's what that is saying. So keep that in mind. So for B, area is pi times radius squared. We first need to figure out what the radius is because this right now is the diameter. So radius is 11 divided by 2. Radius is 5.5. And that's what I put in here. Now, there's two ways you can do this. If you have a calculator like this, I use pi and then I go times 5.5. I have an x2 button. If you have a yx button or something like that that does the same thing, this hat does the same thing as well. So if you do hat and then 2 like that, it will square it. I prefer to just use my x2 button. So you get 95.03 if you do it that way. Let's say you don't know how to do it, else you just go 5.5 times 5.5 because that is what 5.5 squared is. You get 95.03 as well. Okay, 95.03, and we are in centimeters, so it's centimeters squared. Perimeter is really just circumference, right? Which is 2 times pi times 5.5 because that's what your radius is. And so we go ahead and go 2 times pi times 5.5, and that's 3456. And that's just centimeters, not squared, okay? And I just ate up all the room that I needed for that triangle. So I apologize if it's going to be a little difficult to see. To get the area, we would go base, right? The two sides that you're going to multiply are going to make a 90. They're going to meet at a 90. So 14.7 times 8.75 divided by 2. Don't forget to divide it by 2. It happens very often, quite often. Okay, so 14.7 times 8.75, hit equal, then divide by 2, 64.31. And we are in feet, right? So it's square feet. I'm going to borrow some room from this question down here. Perimeter, in this case, will be this plus that. 10.5 plus 9.5 plus 14.7. This will be 20 right here, plus 14.7, that would be 34.7 feet. That's the perimeter. So perimeter is there, area is right here. We did not add 8.75 to here, okay? Let's keep going. This is a parallelogram. To get the area, we go base times height. Again, they make a 90. So this one isn't in the equation for area. So 17.8 times 12.6 224.28 centimeters squared. That's your answer. For perimeter, we go 2 times 17.8 plus 2 times 14.2. 35.6 plus 28.4. 64 on the nose. And then last question here. Okay. This one, you only have 2 sides. Thank goodness for Pythagorean theorem though, right? Remember there are 2 cases. We did this in the review the first week. I'm going to call this x. That's my hypotenuse. X squared is going to be 2.3 squared plus 4.15 squared. Why am I finding that? Because I need it for the perimeter. Okay. X is going to be square root of whatever this is. So I don't know, it's been a while, right? So 2.3 squared plus 4.15 squared, 22.5125. Don't round too early. Square root that answer, you get 4.74 meters. So I'm going to park this for now. To find the area of this triangle, you didn't really need this though. Okay. Area is just 2.3 times 4.15 divided by 2. 4.77 square feet, square meters, sorry, square meters. Okay, perimeter, it's 2.3 plus 4.15 plus 4.74, which I just found. That's 1119, and that's just meters. Okay, so that's, as you're writing this down, I just want to mention what's going to happen soon. Soon they're going to say you're trying to put carpet down on a triangular room. How much carpet would you need? You need 4.77 square meters of carpet, right? How much baseboard would you need to go around this room? Oh, you're talking perimeter. You need 11.19 meters. What's going to make it even more complicated is that you can't buy, good luck going to a store and saying, hey, can I have 11.19 meters of something? They're going to be like, sorry, sir, you can't, we only sell them in quantities of 20 meters, 20 meter roll for that baseboard that you have here, or 50 meter roll. So we're going to have to deal with that. And how would we buy something? Well, obviously you need to buy that bigger box and then have some leftovers, okay? So let's continue. Yeah, go ahead. Let's keep going. area of a circle is 540.75 square inches. Determine its radius. The area of a rectangular room is 400 square feet. If the length is 15 feet, calculate the width of the room. And then leave 4 rows. Then we're going to do another one. The last one, the area of a triangle is 845.25 square meters. If the height is 17.8 meters, determine the dimension of the base. So go ahead and using the formulas that I gave you, okay, I'm going to scroll up a bit so that people in the back can see better. Using the formulas I gave you, go back and try to solve for this. I know that you should be able to do this already. I'm just wondering, can you, right? The triangle might be a struggle because I didn't give you the formulas. So we'll work with that. Going back up so that people that need to copy the top. So give that a try. Show your work, okay? All right. Okay. So here we go. You're given the area of a circle, right? So that's there. Determine the radius. Okay. So A is given, radius is unknown. You go back to your formulas, which you should at this point have on your formula sheet, right? You know that the radius is equal to the area divided by pi and all that square rooted. Okay. I will, if time allows, I will show you how we get here. Okay, it's important. It's just manipulating the formula that you were given. So radius would be 540.75 divided by pi, and we'll square root our answer. So you always got to work with the inside and then work out. Okay. So I'll show you how I do it. 540.75 divided by pi. So if you want to do the one extra step, right, of using all decimals, so square root, and you get 13.12. What units are we in? We're in inches, so it's just inches because radius is the length, right, of the radius. Diameter would be 2 times radius, right? So diameter would be 2 times 13.12, which would be 26.24 inches. Okay, just as an aside. Technically, if the question had asked you for the diameter, you would not round here. You would keep at least 4 decimals and then multiply it by 2 and then only round here. But we were done at this point. That's all they wanted. The other question, the area of a rectangular room is 400 square feet. If the length is 15, calculate the width. So to get the width, we would take area and divide it by length. And in this case, it's 400 divided by 15. And we get 26.67. And we are in feet, right? So that is the width. That one was easier. The area of a triangle is 845.25 square meters. The height is 17.8. Determine the dimension, right? So the area is given to you. You know the height. They want the dimension of the base. So how would we do that? I didn't give you the formulas. Well, I'll tell you this. Area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Okay. If you want to know the base, you would go 2 times area divided by height. If you want to know the height, you go 2 times area divided by base. And you notice that there's a 2 here, and that's where that is coming from. So which one are we choosing? We're choosing this one because we want to know the base. So the base would be 2 times 845.25 divided by 17.8. I would always suggest hit equal and then divide. And that's 94.97, and we are in meters. So that's what that is. So today I'm giving you a lot of examples, and we're gonna basically go right till the end. Determine area of the Can I ask you to change the area and perimeter? By the way, this is a semicircle. Okay. So to get the area of a semicircle, we would have to go pi r squared divided by 2. The radius from this shape is 21 divided by 2. That's 10.5 inches. So we're going to use that in here. So it's pi 10.5 squared divided by 2. So what do I do with my calculator here? Pi times 10.5 squared equals, divided by 2, 173.18. And we are in inches, so it's squared inches. I should box this in because that's your formula for a semi. I should also box in these ones here. And this is the last thing we'll do, okay? And then I'll call it a day. We worked hard today. How would you do the perimeter of this? Of this particular shape, you have to imagine, right? There is the other half that is missing. So perimeter would be circumference divided by 2. You take the whole circumference, but you will divide it by 2 because you only want half, plus the diameter. So this would be half the circumference, and this is the diameter. So of this particular shape, you need to get circumference divided in half over that, which really turns into, because the circumference is 2 pi r, if you divide that by 2, you really are canceling these here, plus the diameter. And so it is really just pi r plus d. The perimeter is pi times the radius, which is 10.5, plus 21. This is 3299. It keeps going. I'm going to add 21 to it. It's 5399 square inches. No, sorry, it's not square inches. This is the perimeter. Can't be square inches, just inches. Okay, so I'll tell you what. You look through these. Tomorrow I will have an AC for you first thing on this, on what you've learned now. Not all of it, I can't do all of it, but you need to know the basics, okay? So at home you can log off, thank you. Everybody here, just wait for the bell, okay?